All right, ready to dive in. Today we're looking at Hindustan Unilever Limited, HUL. They've been making some big moves lately, and it's all detailed out in this Indian Express article. Big acquisition, a split. Should be pretty interesting, right?
Definitely. HUL is really adapting to the market in some interesting ways. They're not just sitting back. It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Well, let's start with that acquisition. HUL just shelled out 2,955 crore, which is like what, 380 million US dollars for a majority stake in Minimalist, the skincare company.
Yeah, this one is interesting. It's not just them adding another brand, it's strategic. HUL is getting into the masstige beauty segment.
Masstige.
Masstige, like mass appeal, but with prestige, that affordable luxury thing.
Yeah.
Like, think of the Ordinary or Pixie, great ingredients, good formulas, but not a crazy price tag.
So they're buying into a whole trend, not just a brand.
Exactly. Minimalist, they already have a good following. They focus on science-backed skincare, potent ingredients, all that. HUL gets those customers, uses that brand recognition to get even bigger in that masstige market.
Smart. Makes sense. I mean, everyone wants good skincare that doesn't break the bank.
Absolutely. It also puts them in a better spot to compete with those newer beauty and personal care companies that are shaking things up.
This wasn't like a hostile takeover, was it?
No. It was a secondary buyout. They bought shares from the existing investors like Peak XV Partners. It seems like even minimalist investors saw this as a good opportunity. With HUL's resources and distribution, there's a lot of growth potential there.
Right. Makes sense. Okay. So big purchase, but that's not all. HUL is also restructuring, right? Saying goodbye to the ice cream business.
Yeah, they're spinning that off. Going to be a separate publicly traded company. Quality Walls, India Limited, or KWIL, it's called a demerger, often done to increase value for shareholders.
So wait, if I own HUL stock, what happens? Do I have to choose between ice cream or like everything else?
No, it's automatic.
Yeah.
For every share of HUL you own, you get a share of KWIL. So you basically get a piece of this new ice cream company, potentially boosting your returns.
Interesting. So HUL slims down, shareholders potentially get more value. Win-win.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Plus, it lets both HUL and KWIL really focus. HUL on consumer goods, KWIL on ice cream, innovation, all that. It gives them both the space to do what they do best.
Yeah, makes sense. Each business gets to thrive on its own. Speaking of, how is HUL doing overall? Their financials, I mean.
Their recent earnings report, well, it's a mixed bag, honestly. Profits jumped 19%, hit 3,001 crore in the December quarter.
Sounds good.
Oh, yeah, there's a catch. It includes a one-time gain from selling their Purite water purifier business.
Ah, okay, so not a typical quarter then.
Exactly. Take that out, profits were basically flat. Sales did go up a bit, but underlying volume growth was stagnant. Shows you the market is a bit slow right now.
Yeah, I guess even a giant like HUL feels that.
It seems so. They're facing the same challenges as everyone else.
All right, so we've got these big moves, the financials. Let's zoom out for a sec. What's the big picture here? What's HUL's game plan?
Seems like you're playing a multi-pronged game here. Acquiring Minimalist shows they're not afraid to make big moves, going after those emerging markets, like that premium skincare segment.
So playing offense.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But then the KWIL demerger, that's more defensive. Streamlining, focusing on strengths, adapting to what consumers want, how the market's moving.
Because you wonder what they'll do next, right?
Absolutely. They're definitely one to watch. All these moves, it suggests they're willing to adapt, to evolve, which could be huge in a market that's changing this fast. But is it enough to really ensure they stay on top? That's the question.
Yeah, the million-dollar question. And we'll dig into that more in the next part of our deep dive. But for now, what are your initial thoughts? What stands out to you the most?
I'm curious to hear your take, too. What's got you intrigued about HUL's strategy? Are they on the right track? Or are there things we're not seeing yet?
A lot to unpack, that's for sure. We'll get into all that in our next segment, so make sure you stick around as we explore what these decisions mean for HUL, for the Indian market, and maybe even for you.
Welcome back. We've laid the groundwork, but let's go deeper into HUL's overall strategy. You know, they've been talking about being purpose-driven, future-fit, but what does that actually mean, in reality?
Yeah, sounds nice, but are they just throwing around buzzwords? Or are they actually walking the walk?
It's a fair question.
Yeah.
I think their actions speak louder than words here. They're trying to balance, right, strong finances, but also a real commitment to sustainability, to making a positive impact. Think of it this way. They want to grow, for sure, but also tackle big issues: climate change, inequality, access to essential things.
So it's not just about making money, it's about making a difference.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
They see that consumers, especially younger people, are holding companies accountable. They want brands that reflect their values.
Makes sense. Okay, so how's that playing out in their actual decisions, this whole purpose-driven thing?
Well, they've set some pretty ambitious targets:
Right.
reducing their environmental impact, being more diverse and inclusive, improving things for the people in their supply chain, the communities they work in. And they're not just saying it, they're making it part of everything they do.
Like what? Give us some concrete examples.
Okay, so they're investing heavily in renewable energy. They're cutting back on water use in their factories, trying to minimize waste, and making sure they're sourcing things responsibly. Plus, they're tackling that plastic waste issue, looking at new packaging solutions.
So it's bigger than just the products, they're changing their whole business model.
Yeah, it's about fundamentally changing how they operate, how they think about their impact on the world, not just ticking boxes.
Impressive. But how does buying Minimalist fit into that? Seems like a purely business move at first glance.
That's where it gets interesting. Minimalists, they're known for being clean, sustainable, ethically sourced ingredients, minimal packaging waste. They're very open about what's in their products, and that appeals to people who want good skincare that's also good for the planet.
So HUL is showing they're serious about sustainability, even with those higher-end products.
Right. It lets them tap into that market of conscious consumers, people who are willing to pay a bit more for products that match their values.
What about the ice cream demerger? Where does that fit in?
Well, separating the businesses gives them both more flexibility, right? KWIL can focus on ice cream, be super responsive to trends, what people want, and HUL can really hone in on their core stuff, maybe even free up resources to invest in things that align with their long-term vision.
More room to adapt, to innovate.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And that's crucial in a market that's changing as fast as this one.
Speaking of the market, we can't forget the bigger picture. How is HUL tied to the Indian economy overall?
It's a huge factor. Their success depends on a healthy Indian market, right?
Mm-hmm.
People need to be buying, incomes need to be rising. People need access to those everyday essentials.
So if the Indian economy struggles, HUL struggles.
Yep, pretty much.
Yep.
But it works both ways. When HUL does well, it creates jobs, supports local suppliers, pays taxes. That all helps the economy grow.
It's like they're in it together, both relying on each other.
Exactly. It shows how important responsible business practices are. HUL's decisions affect millions of people, so those ethical, sustainable choices, they matter.
Totally. Now, we've talked about their strategies, their impact. I'm curious about the people. What's it actually like to work at HUL? What kind of culture do they have?
People don't always think about that side of things. It's known to be demanding, but also rewarding. High expectations, but they also value diversity, inclusion, personal growth.
So they push you, but they support you too.
Yeah, they invest a lot in training, offer opportunities to move up. You see a lot of people who worked at HUL going on to be leaders in other companies.
It's like a stepping stone.
That's a good way to put it. And their diversity inclusion efforts, it's not just talk. They're trying to make sure everyone feels welcome and has a chance to succeed.
They see that having a mix of people brings fresh ideas, which is good for business.
For sure. Plus, it helps them attract good people. People want to work somewhere that shares their values, somewhere they can grow.
Okay, so they seem to be doing a lot right. Clear strategy, sustainability, positive impact, good work environment. But are there any, I don't know, cracks in the facade? What challenges are they facing?
Every company has challenges.
Hmm.
Like we said, the Indian market is super competitive. HUL can't just sit still. They have to keep innovating to stay ahead, especially with new companies popping up all the time.
So they can't rest on their laurels, got to keep pushing the boundaries.
Yeah. And they also have to deal with all the global uncertainty, inflation, supply chain issues, political stuff. It all affects their bottom line. They need to be able to adapt quickly.
Like walking a tightrope, trying to balance all these things at once.
Perfect analogy. Running a company like HUL, it's complex. Tough decisions, managing risk, constantly adjusting strategies. It's a lot to juggle.
So it's not all sunshine and roses. There are some real hurdles they need to clear if they want to stay at the top.
Definitely.
Oh.
But they have a good track record, a strong leadership team, and a deep understanding of the Indian market.
So they're well equipped to handle it, at least.
That's right. It'll be interesting to see what they do in the next few years, how they continue to shape the market. But maybe the biggest question is, what makes them so successful? What's their secret?
Yeah, what is it about HUL? They consistently do well, they stay dominant. Is it their brands? Their distribution? their understanding of the Indian consumer. Something else entirely.
That's the million-dollar question,
Right.
right? People have been trying to figure that out for ages. There's no magic bullet, but there are a few key ingredients. I'd say one of the biggest is their focus on the consumer.
So they're not just selling stuff, they're solving problems, filling needs. They really get what makes Indian consumers tick.
Exactly. They're always asking, what do people want? What are their problems? How can we make their lives better? And that shows in everything they do. It's like they're anthropologists studying Indian consumers.
Interesting way to put it. They're not guessing, they're doing their research, watching trends, adapting.
Right. And that understanding, that's combined with a strong portfolio of brands. They've got iconic brands that people trust, that they love. Those brands are household names. They mean something to people.
It's like they're selling a part of Indian culture, a part of people's identity.
You got it. Those brands are woven into Indian life. They represent trust, quality, tradition.
And then you add their distribution network, they're everywhere, right? Every little corner of the country.
It's amazing. They've got distributors, wholesalers, retailers. It's like the Amazon of India, but for everyday products. They can reach almost anyone, no matter where they are.
It's mind-boggling how they manage that in such a diverse, complex country.
And that's where their local knowledge comes in. They adapt their strategies, they understand the different cultures, languages, even how distribution works in different areas. They give their local teams the power to make decisions based on what they know.
So it's not just one big company, it's a bunch of smaller, more agile units working together.
Great way to think about it, like a fleet of speedboats navigating all the twists and turns of the Indian market.
Okay, so we've got consumer focus, strong brands, distribution, that local flexibility. What else is part of their success?
Leadership. They've got a strong leadership team, people who can think strategically, get things done, and they're committed to the company's values. They've got a good captain steering the ship.
Important, especially in a market like India.
Absolutely. They're always looking ahead, anticipating what's coming, making bold decisions. But the question is, can they replicate this, somewhere else? Can they take this formula and make it work globally?
The billion-dollar question. Can they export that success? What do you think?
Lots of companies have tried. It's rarely easy taking something that works in one place and making it work somewhere else. There's always risk involved, and HUL would face challenges for sure.
Like what?
Well, they'd have to adapt their products, their marketing. It all has to resonate with those specific consumers. What works in India might not work in, say, Europe or the US. Cultures are different, lifestyles are different, even ideas about beauty and personal care are different.
So they can't just assume what works here will work everywhere.
Nope. They'd need to do their research, understand those nuances, tailor their approach. They'd have to show what makes them unique, why people should choose them over what they already have.
And what about competition? Wouldn't they be going up against some big names?
Oh, absolutely. Breaking into a new market is tough, especially when you've got established players. They'd have to find a way to stand out, maybe create new products or buy local brands.
So they'd need to innovate, adapt to each market, not just copy-paste.
Exactly. Plus, distribution. Setting up a whole new network in a new place, that's expensive, it takes time. Building those relationships with retailers, distributors,
Yeah.
a whole other challenge.
Global expansion, even with their experience, it's not an easy road for HUL.
No, not at all. But they do have strengths. That consumer understanding, their brands, their distribution expertise, the way they're set up. It could work. No guarantees, but they have a shot.
High risk, high reward, as they say. We'll see if they decide to really go for it. But for now, let's come back to India. HUL is often seen as a symbol of India's rise, economically speaking. But what does the future hold for them? Can they keep that leadership position as the world changes?
That's a big question. The world is getting more complex, more connected, and companies like HUL are facing all sorts of new challenges and opportunities. Digital technology, sustainability, changing consumer needs. It's all going to shape what happens next.
Feels like they're at a turning point, balancing their past success with the need to adapt to the future.
Exactly. And that's what makes this so interesting. They're not just a company. They're a reflection of India's own journey, how it's changing and growing.
Okay, we've covered a lot. Strategy, financials, sustainability, global potential. But let's look at something else, something people might not always think about. Their impact on India. Beyond just business, they're a huge presence. Their actions have consequences.
You're right. It goes beyond products. They employ people. They drive growth. They contribute to social progress. Their actions ripple out. They affect communities all over.
Let's unpack that. How are they contributing beyond the business itself?
Well, just think about how big they are. They directly employ tens of thousands of people, and then their supply chain, that creates countless more jobs. That's huge in a country with a workforce like India's.
So it's not just about profits, it's about livelihoods, putting food on the table.
Absolutely. And they're not just giving jobs, they're investing in training programs, making people more skilled, more productive. That benefits everyone.
Investing in people, that's smart. It's like they're building up the country's human capital.
You got it. And remember their distribution network, reaching every little village. That's not just business, it's social impact too.
Yeah, we talked about that, but how so?
They're bringing essential goods to places that might not have them otherwise. They're improving lives, promoting equality.
So soap and shampoo, sure, but also sanitation, hygiene, better lives for people in those communities.
Right. And that leads to better health, better education, better economic development. It's a chain reaction, all stemming from their business.
It's amazing how something as simple as access to hygiene products can have such a big impact. But it's not just that. They're also big on sustainability, right?
Huge. And it's not just PR, it's real. They're trying to reduce their environmental impact, which helps India fight climate change, protect the environment, renewable energy, less water, less waste, responsible sourcing. It's all part of it.
So they're actually doing it, not just talking about it.
And they're trying to make their whole value chain more sustainable, from the farmers to the stores. It's a big undertaking.
It's like they're looking at the whole picture, not just their little piece of it.
Exactly. And their social programs, those are important too. They're empowering women, improving sanitation, providing clean water, supporting education and healthcare.
So they're using their resources, their influence, to tackle those big social challenges.
They get it. Their success is tied to the well-being of the communities they're in. And they're using their skills, their reach, to make things better.
It's really interesting to see. They're showing that businesses can be a force for good.
For sure. They're not just taking from society, they're giving back. They're helping it grow.
Okay, so we've seen a lot of positives. But let's be real. No company is perfect. Is there anything they could be doing better? Any criticisms?
There's always room for improvement. Some people say they could do more on fair labor practices, making sure their supply chain is ethical, maybe reducing the impact of their packaging.
So even a company like HUL, which is generally seen as responsible, can still do more.
Absolutely. It's important to keep them accountable, push them to keep getting better. Consumers, investors, activists, we all have a role to play.
It's a balancing act, right? They're in a competitive market. They have to make money. Doing good and doing well, it's not always easy.
That's the challenge for any business.
Yeah.
But I think companies like HUL are realizing that doing good isn't just the right thing to do, it's also good for business. Consumers care about that stuff now.
So being ethical is also strategic. Makes sense.
Exactly. That's what makes HUL so fascinating. They're figuring out how to do both, and they're leading the way.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've spent the last two parts really getting under the hood of Hindustan Unilever Limited, HUL strategy, challenges, impact. We've covered a lot. But before we wrap up, there's one more thing I want to think about. You know, HUL, they're often seen as a prime example of India's economic success story. They've grown right alongside the nation. But as India keeps changing, keeps evolving, what role will HUL play in shaping that future?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and it's bigger than just numbers and profits. It's about understanding HUL's place in Indian society, in the economy, all of it.
Exactly. And we've talked about their sustainability efforts, their social impact, but I want to dig a little deeper. How are they actively contributing to India's progress beyond just selling their products?
Think of it this way. HUL, they're not just a company, they're a force for change. Everything they do affects millions of Indians. The farmers growing the ingredients, the shops selling their stuff, the families using it, everyone.
It's like a ripple effect, right? It goes way beyond their own business.
Exactly. And that's what's so powerful. They're not just riding the wave of India's growth, they're actively shaping it. The way they invest, the new things they come up with, their commitment to doing good, it all contributes to a better India.
So specific examples, how are they driving that positive change?
Well, jobs, for one. Tens of thousands of people work directly for HUL. And then their whole supply chain creates even more jobs, indirectly. That makes a huge difference in a country like India with so many people.
Yeah, it's not just about making money, it's about livelihoods, providing for families.
For sure. And it goes beyond that. They invest in training, in upskilling their workforce. That makes people more productive, which helps the whole country.
So they're not just hiring, they're investing in people, building up that human capital. Smart move.
Absolutely. And remember how they reach every corner of the country with their distribution network? That has a social impact too.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that. But remind me how.
They're bringing essential goods, everyday necessities to rural areas, places that might not have them otherwise. It's about improving lives, making things more equal.
So it's not just selling products, it's improving sanitation, hygiene, bringing those benefits to communities that need them.
Right, and that can lead to better health, better education, even more economic development. It all connects.
It's amazing how something like access to basic things can make such a difference. But it's not just that. Their sustainability efforts, they're playing a big part too, right?
Huge part. And they're serious about it. Reducing their impact on the environment, pushing for renewable energy, using less water, less waste, being responsible about their sourcing.
So they're actually walking the walk, not just talking about it.
They are. And they're going even further, trying to make their whole supply chain more sustainable, working with farmers, with retailers. It's a big effort.
They're looking at the bigger picture, that's for sure.
And then you've got their social impact programs, empowering women, improving sanitation, providing clean water, supporting education, healthcare. It's a lot.
They're using what they have, their resources, their influence, to tackle some of India's toughest problems.
They're not just a company in India, they're a part of India. They see that their success depends on the well-being of the country, of the communities.
It's really impressive. They're showing that businesses can be a force for good, a real force for change.
They are. And it's not just about being ethical, it's about being smart. It's about understanding that doing good is good for business in the long run.
This has been a really eye-opening look at HUL. We started with their strategy, their numbers, but we ended up seeing how they're woven into the fabric of India, how they're shaping the future. It's clear they're more than just a company, they're a part of something bigger.
Absolutely. Their story is a really powerful example of what business can be, what it can achieve when it's done right.
And it gives us a lot to think about. What's next for HUL? Can they keep leading the way while also doing good? What can we learn from them? It's a story that's still unfolding.
It is, and I'm excited to see what happens next.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of Hindustan Unilever Limited. It's been a fascinating journey, and we hope you learned something along the way.
Thanks for joining us.
And to everyone listening out there, stay curious, keep asking questions, and keep learning. We'll be back soon with another deep dive, another chance to explore something new. Until then, keep those minds engaged.